Secretary, were you aware of this CIA report?
When we think of Islam, we think of a faith that brings comfort to 1 billion people around the world.
Our financial systems are decades old. According to some estimates, we cannot track $2.3 trillion in transactions.
Find comfort and solace and peace. That's made brothers and sisters out of every race.
Do you think 9/11 is a conspiracy?
What kind of a student was Hani Hanjour? A slow learner who started concerning his flight instructor when he refused to land.
I bumped into a U.S. military intelligence official and I said, look, what have you got? And he said, obviously, this is clearly an act of terrorism. And then he got very close to me and almost silent for a few seconds. And he leaned in and he said, this attack was so well coordinated that if I were you, I would stay off the E-ring.
The location where this plane went in, rather fortunate because exactly where the plane went in was an area that had recently been redeveloped.
She noticed 3 men on top of a van, posing for pictures with the towers burning in the background.
And I could see that they were like happy, you know, they didn't look shocked to me, you know, they didn't look shocked. I thought it was very strange.
This is as close as we can get to the base of the World Trade Center. You can see the firemen assembled here, the police officers, FBI agents, and you can see the towers, a huge explosion now raining debris on all of us.
What's up, guys? Welcome to Down the Rabbit Hole, Part 2, the 9/11 attacks. Just before you get into this episode, I just wanted to say that I am on TikTok, Spotify, Instagram, and YouTube. It's all under the same name, The Last House on the Left, so just be aware of that. Also, before we get into this podcast, I just wanted to say viewer discretion is advised. We talk about some serious stuff regarding Ground Zero and what happened there. So just have that at the front of your mind, that this is just to give context about what happened to that day and not to glorify or shine any bad light upon the victims and their families. Also, a couple other quick things is that in this description, you will see the timestamps. So if you want to jump around about the different topics that we cover, that's totally fine. That's what they're there for. What we're going to be talking about in this episode is what happened on the actual day, like the timeline, like minute by minute, essentially. We're also going to talk about the failure of the intelligence agencies, and we're also going to talk about like possible 9/11 conspiracies. So that also being said, there was so much that we covered in this episode, but also I am doing a part 3 because there's just so much more that even just after filming this that we didn't even fully address. So my friend Joe Fournier, who you guys know, an old guest of the show, is going to be back for part 3, which I'm going to be releasing later in September or maybe early October. And just one other quick last thing, as many of you guys know, the passing of Charlie Kirk, the political activist for not just the right but the whole Republican Party. He passed away and was killed through being shot today. So I just wanted to acknowledge him. I didn't agree with him on a lot of different issues, but I think political violence is never an option. So once again, this is a heavy podcast, but overall the research for everything going on, I think, is very crucial for even times like today, and how to avoid terrible occurrences like stuff going on with Charlie Kirk and other bad things that's going on in the world. So once again, guys, thank you again. Enjoy the episode. See you next time. What's up, guys? Welcome back. This is Down the Rabbit Hole, Part 2 of the September 11th attacks. Dan Toms, hello. Shane Greska.
Yeah, what up, buddy?
We just we had to break it up into 2 parts. Once again, like I said, in part 1, because there's just so much here. So in this particular timeline, we're going to talk about the actual day of what was going on, and then we're going to hit the intelligence agencies and maybe a couple strange things that were happening that day, the aftermath of 9/11, and maybe some conspiracy theories. Or are they actually all true? So here we go.
So quick recap.
Yes.
We just went through a decade of global terror network with a plan. In part 2, we're going to be talking about all the events of the morning of September 11th, moment by moment, which you have the timeline, you said, right?
I mean, we're going to have to jump around a little bit overall because we're also going to cover what Bush was doing that day, but yeah.
He was golfing. No, I'm just kidding.
Now watch this drive.
Yeah, and like you said, we're also going to dive into intelligent failures.
Yep.
And conspiracy theories, so that's exciting.
Cool. Anything else, Shane? We covered a lot about Muhammad Atta, and just, do you know why that he was considered the head of everything? Was it just because he was so radical? Was that why?
So radical, and he was the oldest of the members, and he had the most. He was 33. He had the most experience being within Al Qaeda, and like even though he hadn't officially done anything, he's been, He's been meeting with the leaders for like 3 years prior to the events, and Osama bin Laden personally, gave him the objective.
Right. Okay. Cool. So there was obviously four. So over for the actual narrative of the day, there were 4 different planes. Once again, for anyone that doesn't know about 9/11, 2 hit the World Trade Center, 1 hits the Pentagon, and 1 crashes in an open field in Shanksville, Pennsylvania. So we're going to first focus on American Flight 11. So American Flight 11 leaves Logan to go into L.A. At 7:59. It's got 92 people on board. So it takes off with no delays. 15 minutes later, the hijackers take over. I forgot to mention this in the first episode, actually, but also apparently those specific days, I think Tuesdays and Thursdays were the lightest travel days. So they would have like the least amount of people, less amount of security,
right,
all that stuff, like in order to take over a plane and whatnot. As everyone knows, the hijackers, they had box cutters. They had I don't know if they had any other small blades.
No, just box cutters. They had mace too.
Mace, that's what I was thinking of. So the hijackers take over American Flight 11 at 8:14. 5 minutes later, flight attendant Betty Ong actually made an AT&T phone call, which is super interesting because I didn't know that you could make phone calls from an airline at that point, like in 2001.
Right.
So she calls the Southeastern Reservation Office. She reported like noxious gas. The first person that actually died in these attacks, everyone, was a guy named Daniel Lemon. And it was very interesting because he was actually a former Israeli commander. So just something really interesting. So at this point, Muhammad Atta lies over the intercom saying he's going to turn the plane around.
Yeah, and I actually just sent you that. Can you pull that up? Type in Muhammad Atta voice Reddit.
In the meantime, while you look that up, I was going to go over the form of how they got the money or how they transferred the money.
Oh, I never even... Yeah, please, sorry.
So it was it's called Halawa system, and it was an informal way to transfer funds. Essentially, it was money laundering. But pilots actually received between $400,000 and $500,000.
Right, I was aware of that.
Yeah, but it was all sent like through the Halawa system. Halawa.
Yeah. Okay.
That way it would couldn't be tracked.
Okay. Shane, I found something on YouTube. It's like just a 20, 30 seconds. Do you want?
Yeah, pull that one up. So this is him, and the funny thing is, he thought he was communicating to the main cabin. He thought he was sending like an intercom message, but he was sending this out as a transmission. So all the air traffic controllers picked this up. They're like, "What the f is this guy saying?"
Right?
Because they didn't know it was a hijack, and they had some suspicion because the plane started deviating from its course.
Off course, right?
It went off course, and then this basically flat out confirmed it.
Right. And so with this another time, so once again, as you said, 8:26 they start flying erratically. 8:32 another attendant Amy Sweeney gets on the phone and relays that the hijackers have a bomb. They obviously didn't. They were lying about it, but at that point, they're just using whatever they can to calm down the people or to get them from attacking. Yeah. And then 8:34, 2 minutes later, Sweeney says something is wrong. We're flying low, and then Flight 11, piloted by Ata, hits the North Tower at 8:46 a.m. between the 93rd and 99th floors. And so here, viewer discretion advised, but this is actually from, we referenced this earlier, the Naday Bros documentary.
The only clear video of the first plane hitting, by the way, that I've seen in the research.
So there's a fireman.
They're looking at like a gas leak right now. Very ordinary stuff they see all the time. And then, boom.
Wow.
Dude, look at that flame ball.
Just
imagine that, man. And going back to Dan, what you said about how big the plane is, think about it. Its impact zone was 7 floors.
Yep.
So like
it was also kind of going at an angle, so you had that wingspan, but you see all that burning fuel is just insane.
Yeah.
And that's why like everyone jumped out because it was so hot. So they'd rather just commit suicide than have to suffer.
Which is how tragic is that, dude?
Yeah.
I think that's the worst aspect of 9/11. Because like they made like there's a segment called The Falling Man, where it's a guy who jumped outside, one of the first guys to jump, and you look at that picture, you're like, they're making light of this, but this is completely messed.
Like easy for you to say. Like that's the one thing. Like I was telling my parents this when I was mentioning that I was going to film this, and imagine if a 9/11 happened like today. Say if it was in New York. Dude, even regardless of how terrible it would be, people would be freaking filming on TikTok.
Oh, yeah.
Snapchat.
News agency would be pulling up, trying to be the first to report it. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
It'd be chaos.
Just disgusting. And it's actually funny. So when the hijackers actually overtook Flight 11, that's when United Flight 157 carrying 66 people takes off. So when the first one gets hijacked, the second one is embarking. So 8:42, 8:46, the hijackers take over, and this once again, don't care much about their names, but the guy that specifically piloted this plane was Marwan al-Shehi. And then at 8:47, al-Shehi, he changes the transponder codes to the plane. So this basically, from what I looked up, hides their speed and their radar. And so so United Flight 175 deviates for their assigned flight plan like 3 minutes later. And then so even though they changed the transponder codes, they never fully they never turned off the transponder, so they were actually tracking the plane, but they didn't. At this point, it was so quickly out. Because that's the thing, when you're also picture if you're like in like a tower, like, or you're in a building that's like monitoring all the planes, like the minutes and seconds are everything, you know. And once again, the episode of the documentary, 102 minutes. Especially The Only Plane in the Sky, the book, just talks about all the back and forth that people are having. Like, oh, did we actually have? And they originally thought the first plane, it was an accident.
Yeah, they thought it was like a civilian plane. They didn't realize it was a commercial airliner. They're like, oh, they accidentally hit the World Trade Center. And dude, the immediate response is like one thing I'll give like a lot of credit on. Even though they weren't able to save a lot of people, they responded to the scene very quickly. And set up
there's only so much you can do.
Right.
Like that's where like people I just don't because common sense and rational.
Right, because if you think about how large the New York Fire Department and Police Department are,
isn't it like 8,000 people? Or
so many people,
crazy?
But it's like the magnitude of this, they can't even pool their efforts to stop it because it's once it gets to that point, you can't do anything about it, dude.
Yeah,
you get people out. And that's it. That's all you can do. You can't even. I don't even think you can stop because they tried to get helicopters to the top of it, but it's.
I do have a video of that later.
Yeah. Okay.
So I
won't talk about.
No, it's fine. It's in like 4K. It's been remastered and whatever. So, and then so one of the documentaries, like I said, it's called 9/11, the new Pearl Harbor, and so this one specifically, many elements of this. documentary. It's like a 4.5-hour documentary on YouTube. It's very like it's a little out there, and they imply some things that I personally don't agree with, but it is, be it as it may to say. So Al Sheikhi, so he almost hit 3 airlines like before he hit even this plane in the way of.
Yeah, he almost collided with them.
Yeah,
because the air traffic controller had to tell him like turn right now to the other plane.
Right, and also 5 minutes before, like eight, so they hit the tower at 9:02, but 5 minutes before at 8:57, 8:58, he was at 28, almost like 29,000 feet, and then he plummeted between 5,000 and 10,000 feet per minute. I think that's what the FPM stands for, and the average descent of a passenger plane, from according to like this documentary and a couple things I looked up. I should double check with Keegan, but the average descent of those planes should be 2,000 feet.
Yeah.
So this is just this absolute dive.
And think about that. Say you're in a plane, you get a little bit of turbulence, you bump around a little bit. Think about what those people, like what their bodies were doing when they're literally descending.
Also the pressure too.
Right.
The pressure change.
Oh, I didn't even think about that either. Yeah. So the South Towers hit, but surprisingly, actually, the building had one entire stairwell that stayed intact until it later collapsed.
Right, and it impacted between floors 78 and 83. And the thing about the second plane, it impacted at a weird angle. It was like diagonal.
Yeah.
So this wing was up here, hit the floors up here, then this wing cut across like that. So yeah, we can see it here. You'll see it comes in like that. See?
Wow.
Just
insane. It hits a couple floors lower than the North Tower, but remarkably, like Ben said, there was one stairwell.
That's just mind-boggling to me. And one thing too, like for me, Dan, is like when I see this, like especially once the plane hits, it's weird when it actually goes to hit it almost seems like the building like envelops the plane, and then inside it explodes instead of immediately hitting it. But obviously it's traveling at I think 500
miles per hour. Yeah.
So just something absolutely freaking ridiculous. Mm-hmm. And so, anyways, with all this, it's absolutely nuts, like how this occurred. And so, so that was, that's the second flight. So, flight 77 took off from Dulles at 8:28 a.m. This carried 64 people. They were headed to LA, and their last message was at 8:51. And the hijacking had deviated the course 3 minutes later. Once again, there's a lot of like specifically with the timeline. That's why I'm looking a little bit more intensely at the notes. But 9:16 to 9:26, this woman Barbara Olson calls, and all passengers are forced to the back of the plane. So, and then at 9:37, the Pentagon is hit. So the Pentagon was 77 feet tall. 125 Pentagon people were killed.
And it was Flight 77.
Yeah. Did I not say that earlier?
Did they do that on purpose, you think? No.
Oh, no. Whoa, Dan. Whoa, I see where you're getting at. You have a point.
Good call.
So, once again, the whole, like I said, it's a 4.5-hour documentary, but it does have, but the Pearl Harbor, the new 9/11 has this thing where they interview all these different pilots, military, commercial, and this turn that also Hani Hanjour did was considered an incredible flight maneuver where he did it like it says here a 330-degree turn at 500 knots.
Right.
While ascending, so he went up like this and then he whipped it around like that. And so and one of the interesting things is that for Hani Hanjour, out of all of the 4 pilots, he was atrocious pilot. Like he was, I think it was him and Sheikhi that were openly not caring of how to land the plane.
Oh yeah.
And but it's just like if this documentary specifically hones in on the fact that like after what's the word? Interviewing the instructors and whatever. They're like, this guy could not fly planes. We have no clue how he even had his license. It was just insane. All right, sorry guys, we lost the last like 30 seconds. So what was the last quick thing that you were saying, Shane?
Oh, did it not get the wedge one thing I was talking about?
Yeah, just repeat yourself really quick.
Yeah, so I and then Dan will say his thing. Yep. But no, I was just saying, out of this tragedy, one like good thing to make not good, but one of the less bad things is the Pentagon plane that crashed into the Pentagon, Flight 77. It crashed into Wedge 1 of the Pentagon, and that was the newly renovated part. So there was way less people in that wedge.
There were supposed to be 4,500, and there was only 800 people.
800 people. So it ultimately led to less casualties, which is like a good thing.
The conspiracy theory is that like there should have been people there and there wasn't. But I don't agree to that at all. Of course.
The other conspiracy theory is that it was a missile, not a plane.
We'll get to that in like I said at the end.
Oh, you already.
Well, that's fine.
Okay.
Like I said, it all like ties in and whatever. All right. So for the last plane, so United 93. Oh well, after this is actually the picture of. So there's only like one camera angle of this specific
Which I feel like
hitting the Pentagon.
Should be way more.
There should be.
I feel like
way
they're not releasing it.
Right. It's like a security footage.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. This right here.
Yeah, and it's like
cameras were really good back in the day.
The frames per second is.
This is the top security building in the entire world. So once again, if anyone wants, go like 2 hours into the 9/11, the new Pearl Harbor, and it breaks down everything that's not right with this picture.
Yeah, see, it's just you see a flash of energy.
So when people do mention that, I think it's just interesting how. That is the one time, like, not all the planes were missiles, obviously, but that, I'm just saying, it's weird. So there was a gas station across the street that, there were 80 cameras, I guess, that, like, that captured this, the goings on here of the plane hitting that tower, or that building, and the FBI confiscated about 80 to 89 different video cameras, and they weren't released.
Weird.
So it doesn't really make sense. So going down now to Flight 93. So United 93 was delayed till 8:42. So 4 minutes before the first impact, that's when it took off, and they were flying to Newark to Francisco. So they were the only flight that wasn't going to L.A. So at 9:28, the hijackers take over, and this is when Zaid Jarrah is the pilot. 2 minutes later, like, passengers start making phone calls to families, and at 9:31, Jarrah makes a statement over the intercom similar to Atta, where he goes, "We have a bomb on board. We're going back to the airport. Please remain quiet." And it was really interesting because one of the guys that ended up rushing the plane, this guy Tom Burnett, through correspondence that he had, I think it was his wife or one of his family members, he believed the bomb threat was a ruse to keep everyone at the back of the plane.
Right.
So he's like mentioning this to someone on the phone before he even takes the before they do that heroic act. So at 10:03, also interesting, right before they crashed. So Flight 93 was the only plane to activate a distress signal. So just like another weird fact. At 10:03, the flight crashes into Shanksville, Pennsylvania, and when I really looked at this too, I was just horrified by how it happened. Is that they were flying at almost 600 miles an hour, upside down, and so basically the last
the passengers wouldn't have felt. I mean, no one felt anything, but they were the only passengers to revolt against the hijackers,
right.
which is great. That shows like the American spirit.
Yeah, and I couldn't even be more like once again, obviously it's well known. The "Let's Roll" comment by Todd Beamer, and Todd Beamer. This other guy, Tom Burnett, and then there was two others.
Yeah, and it talks about those guys in this book. And so they were slamming like a carriage, right, almost into the cockpit door.
Apparently one of the flight attendants tried to take boiled water and throw it.
Yeah.
Just like absolute chaos in this building, or in this plane. And as they were like, making this flight and whatever, like they started throwing the plane so that the citizens couldn't get in.
And there's documented like the last statements from the pilot. He's like, "Take it down now," in Arabic.
And so that was Bin Laden's. That like if they couldn't crash into like, so apparently that plane was supposed to go arguably. Well, it's
the White House. You think
is probably the White House.
Yeah.
But it's There's once again we'll get a conspiracy theories later.
And right before that, well, probably while they were fighting, that's when the South Tower fell or collapsed.
Basically, so And another interesting fact too is this Colonel Robert Marr, who is the commander-in-chief of the Northeast Defense Sector. The military only had 4 planes that were prepared to defend the West Coast at the current time, because they were also military exercises were happening, but for some reason not for this specific. Once again, I'm no historian or expert, but it's just absolutely insane. So, and at this time, after the first plane hit, they thought the casualties were going to be 40,000.
Yeah,
like CNN, I think, reported it. Like people that were on the ground, and I do not blame them at all. So, so yeah, it's just it's mind blowing, man. So, now we're gonna go to George Bush and what he was doing.
Hold on, did we want to talk a little bit about the rescue effort and stuff like that, or is that later on?
Yeah, we can do it now if you like. Go for it.
Yeah. So one thing I wanted to go back to was how you had mentioned the second tower, there was one stairwell that remained intact.
Yeah.
After the plane crashed. In the north tower, everything above the impact zone was destroyed.
Oh, so incinerated.
So to put it in perspective, every victim from floors 93 up through I think 107, they all died. And I think if you think about that, 107, with Windows of the World being on floors 106 and 107. So just that basic fact that none of those people made it, and what they were going through with that intense heat. And you can see pictures, people standing out of the windows, getting ready to jump. It's you can't even imagine their last thoughts, what's going through their mind. They're
no.
Some people are oh, they suspected a helicopter would come around and save them, but no, it's not possible. Dangerous. So I just wanted to bring light to that, because that's a really that piece was really hard for me to wrap my head around.
Yeah, and I have one thing at the end too, where I go through. We'll go through the other horrors of Ground Zero as well. But that has to be said, because when it comes to it's just chaos.
It's burning alive.
Yeah, and
flesh burning.
Apparently too, some sprinklers were going off in parts of of the buildings, but it was boiling hot. So people were burning.
Oh, geez.
Yeah,
and burning is arguably some of the most painful way to go, I believe.
Yeah, because no one really knows what those people feel like, but if you just think about it and put logic in there, they were melting.
This sounds terrible, but it's almost better if you were in the plane on that day.
Yeah, because you didn't feel anything. You just died instantly. Yeah. But I keep saying the good thing. There's nothing good about this day.
Yeah.
The less tragic thing is some people above the impact zone in the south tower did survive, and I have a couple names here.
Please.
But so this one guy, Stanley.
Yes.
Stanley Prainath. So he was on floor, I think, 81.
Which building was this?
This is the South Tower.
Okay.
So floor 81, which is almost dead center where the plane hit. He got stuck in some rubble pretty badly, and there was a group of people on a floor above who was coming down the stairs, looking for people, led by this guy named Brian Clark. So what happened, this guy Brian Clark went and saved this guy Stanley, got him out of the rubble. Mm-hmm. But the group that Brian was with, they went back up.
Is this the guy with the red bandana?
No, that's a different guy.
Okay.
I'll get to. But the rest of the group went back up because they thought the stairwell was blocked, but it really wasn't. And everyone that went back up died. Yeah. And this guy Brian and Stanley, they made it out alive. It's one of the most rare cases of someone surviving that day, because they were in the dead center of where the plane hit. But yeah,
sheesh.
But the red bandana guy, so that guy's name is Wells Crowther. So he was a finance employee and a volunteer firefighter, 24 years old. As soon as the pandemonium started, he put on this red bandana and he's running, telling people, get out of here, go down the stairs, evacuate. And he was rescuing people from the smoke. And it's reported that he saved between 12 and 18 people.
Right. Yeah.
You can't really make a claim for that, but still, dude, this guy's efforts need to go down in history. He did die, unfortunately.
Yeah,
but he was one of the heroes, dude, of this day.
Kind of a sidetrack. Did you hear that Seth MacFarlane was supposed to be on Flight 11?
Oh, there's a lot of celebrities. I have that later too.
I do.
So
okay.
yeah, great point. One thing I wanted to backtrack a little bit, just to give more context as well. So like for like what just I know it's a little bit of a pivot, but so what was America like right before 9/11 happened? Because from what I know of, like gas was super cheap. It was like $1.50 a gallon. Unemployment was down to like 4%. All these crazy things. So at the time too, it's so interesting that the worst like tragedy ever happens in like a sprawling part of the American economy.
Yeah.
And I think one of the reasons too why I'm glad this just popped back in my head is why each place was targeted is that the World Trade Centers had to do like reference the once again the American economy and capitalism, and then the Pentagon had to do with America's military might, and then the where the Flight 93 was supposed to be at the Capitol, they were all targets of different aspects of America itself.
Mm-hmm.
Military power, political power, and financial or economical power.
Yeah.
So
100%. And that's when everyone loved Bush back in those days. And then after 9/11, and then after we went to war with Afghanistan, look at him now. He's looked down upon his presidency.
Wow.
But that 2001 period, like, I think, did he get elected in 2000? Am I thinking?
Yeah. So he was only 7 months in.
7 months in, and it was like he was well liked so far.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up, Shane. So let's talk about like some basic stuff about George Bush before we go into how like what he was doing that day. So from what I know is that he was basically he went to Harvard and he went to Yale, but he wasn't kind of he was from Texas. Obviously, he was a governor before he was a president. He also was a functioning alcoholic for a while.
What?
He went sober at like 40 because he had like one terrible like night of like drinking and a hangover, and then he like tried to turn his life around.
Oh no!
Obviously, like he also was the son of George H.W.
Yeah.
Bush, so he had a lot going for him there. But I think when it comes to, from what I know, is that he was kind of more of an inexperienced president, and an amazing thing. So this is why I talk about that. I brought up that documentary, "The World According to Dick Cheney" as vice president. He brought in Dick Cheney because he had the most. He was one of the most qualified people to ever and arguably the most powerful vice president ever in American history. He was a former, I think he was a part of an intelligence committee. He was Secretary of State. What else was he? He was, member of Congress, White House Chief of Staff. So just like a super qualified guy. But Bush brought him on so he could have like an experienced guy behind him. And it was his first presidency. Obviously, like he was the president, but he went through a lot he brought a lot of these. He let Dick Cheney in on a lot of, the inner circle of, power. Obviously, sometimes people can, debate how much a power vice president actually has. But in this specific time, and we'll get to it later, Dick Cheney, was an absolute warmonger and I think personally an evil guy. Why are you laughing?
No, it's funny. Dick Cheney, he became vice president. What's his background? What was he famous for?
Let's see what I have on Cheney. So he was he grew. Yeah, I had some.
But he's just one of those guys. You hear his name and you're like, he shouldn't be in a high position.
Yeah, I should know more about. I have more of his like political career. So like
Joe would have a lot on Dick Cheney.
Yeah, that could be a whole honestly podcast in and of itself. But one interesting thing in when Bush was working up to his presidency, he went to Dick Cheney to ask him. He's like, "Hey, will you be my vice president?" And Dick Cheney originally said no because he didn't. He had tried to run for president on his own before that, and he was like humiliated, so he never wanted to do it. So then Bush asked him "Well, hey, can you help me vet for certain people?" And it was interesting because Dick Cheney put up this extreme like vetting process, to make a long story short, where he would have they would look through everyone's tax returns, all of their history to like the nth degree and whatever. But when at the very, very end, where Bush goes, after they go through all these, different clients or possible candidates, and Bush goes and tells them like, you are the most qualified. You need to be my vice president. And then he finally agreed. It's just absolutely nuts.
And I'm seeing here, Cheney ended his vice presidential tenure as a deeply unpopular figure in American politics with an approval rating of 13%.
Was it really? It's crazy that guy never went to jail or whatever, dude. It's absolutely wild. Absolutely wild. So Bush's morning in Florida, right? So so he stayed. George Bush stayed overnight at this place in Florida, and he visited a school. So at 8:40 a.m. he went on a run. And then 8:05, he goes and speaks with his national security advisor, Condoleezza Rice. 8:40, he heads to the Emma E. Booker Elementary School. And then Bush, at around 8:55, he finds out about the first plane by Condoleezza Rice in like a holding area. And they were made conjectures about like, oh, it's the weather or something else. They didn't know. They didn't think it was an attack at the time. And so at 9:05, like during the reading time that Bush does with the children there, his one of his advisors or assistants, Andy Card, informs Bush.
Chief of Staff.
Yeah, sorry, Chief of Staff. Thank you, appreciate that. And here is a video of that.
Yeah, I do want to see this.
So here they are talking. And so, to make it quicker, they're chatting it up. And like I said, there's 20 kids in this.
Just look at his change of demeanor. So look, he's all happy now.
Here comes Andy Card.
Watch this.
And at this point, Andy Card says, a second plane has hit the World Trade Center. America is under attack. So that's the gist of that, right? And a lot of people make certain conjectures about this, saying, "Oh, Bush, they are very critical of his reaction, whatever." I'm just not sure, like, what to do in that situation, to be honest.
Especially in front of little kids.
I'm very critical of George Bush, but in this state, like, I mean, it is super interesting. But also, like, if the country is under attack, if you just get up and go, I'd be like, yeah, that makes sense. Like, you're the president. And even at these places too, they always have separate rooms where they can go and they're in contact with everyone. So Shane, it looks like you're looking for something in the book.
No,
you have?
I was just looking for the whisper, because there's a picture of it in here.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but no, it's. But dude, think about it. I don't know if he knew the severity of the situation, but he remained composed during that.
That's
like he could have like freaked the F out. And
what do you think Trump would do if that would happen?
He'd probably be like, "We're under attack, kids."
Yes.
Say a prayer.
You're gonna be okay.
We're gonna take great care of you.
Oh man, so geez. So at 9, so once again this happened. So basically he sits there for another 10 minutes, and so then right after this he goes and calls Dick Cheney, his vice president, and then right after that he calls George Tenet, the head of the CIA.
Yeah, that's him calling Dick Cheney right there. The first picture.
Yeah, and so if the camera can see, I'll show it right here. That's why the documentary on Prime, 9/11 Inside the President's Room, is just really cool to see what's happening at the time.
And then I think that's no, that's still Bushy on the phone with Cheney.
Bushy. And so around 9, at 9:23, so like basically right after another, he calls Dick Cheney, he calls George Tenet, and then he calls the FBI director Robert Mueller, and then at 9:30 Cheney enters a bunker in Washington, D.C., like an underground one. And at the same time, Bush delivers a 1-minute statement on confirming that America is under attack. Here is that video.
this is a difficult moment for America. I, unfortunately, will be going back to Washington after my remarks. Secretary Rod Pace and Lieutenant Governor will take the podium and discuss education. I do want to thank the folks here at Booker Elementary School for their hospitality. Today, we've had a national tragedy. 2 airplanes have crashed into the World Trade Center in an apparent terrorist attack on our country. I have spoken to the Vice President, to the Governor of New York, to the Director of the FBI, and have ordered that the full resources of the federal government go to help the victims and their families, and to conduct a full-scale investigation to hunt down and to find those folks who committed this act. Terrorism against our nation will not stand. And now, if you join me in a moment of silence. May God bless the victims, their families, and America. Thank you very much.
Damn.
Yeah, I wonder if that with that stuff, think about even with everything going on, all his staff is like, all right, we have to come up with a speech right now, and it's got to be, just think about like a 1-minute speech. That means it's go time. Also, after this happens, they basically rushed him from here, like they like sped
to Air Force
One. They
One.
were apparently, as they were going to Air Force One, they thought they were going to be attacked on the road.
Yeah,
and they immediately got up in the air,
and they stayed there for a while.
Yeah. So right after this, Bush, he goes and speaks with Condoleezza Rice again. Once again, 9:45, they board Air Force One, and then as they're leaving the tarmac or whatever. Once again, at this exact time, now I have all their names. So Todd Beamer, Tom Burnett, Mark Bingham, and Jeremy Glick were the guys that they tried to overflow the United Flights 93.
Overthrow. No, that is the right word. But it sounded like overthrowing like a president or something.
No.
Like a coup.
No, not quite. So 9:58, World Trade Center 2 collapses. And what's so interesting about this specific one, Shane? Or Dan?
A couple of journalists and police officers who were quarantining the
conspiracy.
The area so people wouldn't cut through.
Well, it's weird that
free fall buildings don't free fall like this from fire.
Well, it's weird that the second one, and you see it go.
Look at it free fall though. That means all the support and all the columns had to have failed. The way it falls is symmetrical.
Like I said, we'll save all the conspiracy theories because that's going to be the best part of this whole podcast. Nothing else is interesting.
Well, no, the way it fell, it was like a professional demolition.
Yeah.
Oh, we're getting there. So, anything else? So that was so debris from World Trade Center 1 collapses, and this actually hits. Apparently, well, it did. Debris did hit World Trade Center 7, another building right next to it.
Ooh.
It turns out this specific building collapses. Also, everyone got evacuated out of building 7, so we'll cover building 7 later. But then, Shane, so we talked about a helicopter video earlier of the towers. This is before they fall. But I think this one actually it says it's in 4K. I just remember looking at this, and I thought it was just a really interesting view. So here we go.
425.
So I'm just going to flip through this real quick while they get up in the air. So they're approaching the tower. Yeah, this is narrated by the pilot.
By the northwest corner.
Jeez. Just like
there's people on the roof.
Dude, think of the people screaming and burning alive.
I could make out the little pebbles on the roof. I could see the individual.
Look at this, bro. Look at this.
Continued circling the towers.
Wow.
If we could
have saw somebody there, we would have made a try, but there was nobody.
It's too hot, dude. There's too much smoke. Too much smoke, too much flame.
Yeah. I mean, the music doesn't help with that either, but still, you get the idea. Yeah, and so I'm trying to think if I have anything else specifically on that day. Another interesting thing is that while they were up in the air, this is the Air Force One. They had there was actually a big confusion because someone said that it turned out not to be true. I think they thought there could be way more than just 4 hijacked planes, but at the time, someone, as they were through the line of communication, someone said Angel is next, and Angel is the code word for Air Force One. So at the time, the presidential staff were flipping out. Like, they wouldn't let anyone get near the cockpit of the plane of Air Force One. Yeah. Rightfully so, of course.
Yeah, and this is right when Dick Cheney authorized the shoot down any unidentified airplanes. So anything that's in the air that isn't communicating with us, you have the authority to shoot down. So he gave that order.
What was the time when the FAA shut every plane down? Because that grounded over about 4,500
yeah, and all these planes that were in the air, they had to land at the nearest airport. And actually, if you look at the stats of that, they did that pretty efficiently. Absolutely. They did that very efficiently. But there were a couple stragglers, you know. I mean, there's freaking thousands of planes over the U.S. in one day, so it makes sense. But
right, and so the entire FAA was closed for 3 days straight.
Yeah, they gave the order. Yep.
Yeah. Yep. And so George Bush.
George Bush.
Jeez, man. It always happens in one of the podcasts. Never going to live that down. So George Bush was really pushing on heading back to D.C.
They wouldn't let him,
and
though.
They would not let him.
Yeah.
But it was quite like a...
because they were in the air
with contention.
Right, sorry to cut you off. They were in the air for a while aboard Air Force One, you know, right. And they didn't want anyone to know where they were, which, you know, makes sense. But they had a bunch of, like, random staff aboard there, you know, like journalists,
right.
Andy Card. Yeah, so it's like, I don't know. What could they have done? Where could they have landed? Eventually, they landed at Barksdale Air Force Base in Louisiana. But is this Condoleezza Rice?
I thought it might be all-out attacks all over Washington, all over the United States. The Secret Service came in and they said, "You have got to go to the bunker."
Yeah.
So she's not in Florida, obviously. She's in Washington.
Driven along, almost propelled along. We had no idea where it was safe and where it wasn't. We didn't think the bunker of the White House was safe at that point.
100 feet below ground, Rice joins Vice President Dick Cheney and other senior officials.
It's amazing to see this in real time.
The Transportation Secretary was tracking tail numbers of aircraft on a yellow pad. He's calling out. He's saying, what happened to 671? What happened to 123? And he's trying to make sense of what's going on. My first thought was, get a message out to the world that the United States of America has not been decapitated. These pictures must have been terrifying.
I'm not gonna lie, I do have mixed opinions about Rice.
America was coming apart.
So yeah, there's that and whatnot. So I thought some other just I labeled this when I was writing the outline, the military industrial complex slash the neocons. But so America. So they began to, after this happens, like, you know, even like a couple hours after, we heightened all our defense systems. We actually contacted like Vladimir Putin, and I just thought it was so. Sorry, this link is blocking my.
Because everyone was worried about a nuclear threat from the Soviet Union. So that's what all the military, that's all they were training for before the events of 9/11. So when 9/11 happened, we're like, this can't be anything from Russia. And it's a completely different threat that people weren't used to.
Right. And, just a couple hours later, George Tenet, and through his, his people, advises the president that it's Al-Qaeda.
Yeah.
But there are so many people that knew it as soon as it happened.
What's his name? We got to shut him out. The main guy.
The
guy who was in charge of...
Oh, Michael Scheuer or John O'Neill?
John O'Neill.
Well, John O'Neill, at this point, is dead because...
no, right, that's what I'm saying. But he out of anyone, knew this was going to happen.
Oh, absolutely. And we'll actually get to... I guess I just spoiled it, but we'll get to John O'Neill pretty quickly. And so I just thought it was just crazy that... calling Putin or whatever. I thought it was interesting. So at this point, Bush tells the director of the FBI, Robert Mueller, he's like, your job just changed, which makes sense, right? I guess so. And then this other CIA briefer of George Tenet basically says that any intelligence gathered on Al-Qaeda that day could not be embargoed from the building. So like everything we find out today, like you can't tell anyone. And then Dick Cheney had an interesting quote on this where he goes, "I was the guilty party. I wanted to be as aggressive as necessary in order to achieve our objective, which was to keep the country safe." So that's a quote, I guess, a little bit a little further down the road when addressing the global war on terror. But it makes that's one the big looming. To use a phrase, looming tower behind 9/11, is that like through this terrible attack, like America used, or a lot of politicians use this as to justify stuff like the Patriot Act. And me and Scott talked about this on our podcast, where I'm like, the beginning of like the surveillance state like kind of started after 9/11, but people use this basically to spy on their own citizens, and that's a whole nother conversation. But I think you guys
and the biggest also outcome was TSA. How much?
Of course.
How like going to the airport nowadays is completely different than how it was before this. Yeah. All the advanced security protocol.
Oh, totally. And it was very interesting because especially Dick Cheney, not that like. It seems like he was doing stuff behind the scenes, like without George Bush's like approval at times, where he would honestly like take certain intelligence that would come in and would cherry pick it and use it for his own narrative.
He was a very aggressive vice president.
Absolutely.
In the wrong way too, I think.
Right. And it wasn't until like it really got bad in the second term between Bush and Cheney.
Yeah.
I don't know if you were aware of any of that too, Dan, but
yeah, a little bit. Do you think he kind of used Bush in the air as an advantage to kind of take the lead?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So this is
100%.
So I thank you for mentioning this.
Yeah.
So he, according to the actual transcripts, I'm not going to go into every single detail because you guys can look it up if you want to, but he actually gave that order before George Bush did approve the order. He gave the order before Bush approved it.
He did.
It's well known by 5 minutes or so.
Wow.
Just absolutely mind-blowing. So, yeah, it was just, there's so much more I want to talk about Cheney and whatever, but I'll save that for...
it's a rabbit hole.
Yeah, it's just a rabbit hole, man. So, last thing on this, too, is that Bush wanted to be back. So, through this, obviously, the invasion of Afghanistan and Iraq happens, but the more you actually look into the actual history of it, Bush wanted to be backed by Congress to go into the war. Oh, you can fix it right there, Shane, if it's gonna fall off.
Yep.
And but Dick Cheney did not want to go. He's like, we just need to go right now. We don't need the backing of Congress, and whatever. So it was very interesting. I have another link, but we won't look it up, where Condoleezza Rice actually claims that Bush ordered the invasion of Afghanistan before 9/11. So if anyone is curious, just let me know. I can send the link to you. And then our good friend, this is actually one of Shane's mentors, someone he really looks up to.
I feel like a joke's incoming.
Someone he really loves, that me and Shane love together. Our good friend Bibi Netanyahu.
If you take out Saddam's regime, I guarantee you that it will have enormous positive reverberations on the region. And I think that people sitting right next door in Iran, young people, and many others will say, the time of such regimes, of such despots, is gone. There's a new age. Something new is happening.
And that is speculation on your part, or you have some evidence?
That's all you really need to know. So this lobbying of America going into foreign wars was happening right after 9/11, like directly. Anything you want to add to that, Shane?
I mean, how long everyone knows about this. That's been going on for so long. In the Middle East, it's such an area of conflict for the longest time that America's been involved in so many different countries at this point. Even Afghanistan, we got out of there. Iraq, now Iran potentially. So it's a never-ending circle.
Do you guys think we should have invaded Iraq?
Dan first.
I don't know about that, but I do think it was the right move to take out Bin Laden.
Oh, of course.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
No, yeah, there's necessary.
But we were like stepping in and being the police for the people over there, because it was not good. Obviously, a lot of
No, absolutely. You're 100% right. I think some of the operations were very necessary, but I think the level of resources, people that we used to go into those places was overdoing it. The casualties, the American casualties.
And it was also like just a big money pull too at the same time.
Right. Dude, think about when we left Afghanistan. Do you know how much equipment we left to them?
It's
billions of billions of dollars, 100%.
Because it was I think each different country, each war in those countries, like Iraq, we spent $2 trillion, in Afghanistan,
and now it's in the hands of
we don't need to pull it. Everyone has seen or heard of the videos where the Taliban are driving U.S. tanks.
Yeah.
You knew my older brother was in Afghanistan, right?
Yeah.
And the first night he was there, they had rockets going to the tent, the mess hall, actually.
Wow.
Like insane.
Damn. Really?
Yeah. So that was Taliban, right?
Yeah. Wow. Yep.
How long was Josh there for?
He was there for like 9 months, I think.
Okay. Damn, dude. That's heavy. I didn't know that.
Sheesh.
But this is all kind of linked, because like
it really is, man.
Be there if I feel like we wouldn't be there if it wasn't for the terror attacks.
Yeah.
Right, but I think I totally believe the invasion of Afghanistan was legitimate, but I think the invasion of Iraq was not.
Right.
So this last thing, once again, The World According to Dick Cheney, that specific documentary, it talks about him lying to this man named Dick Armey, who was the GOP who had the power to stop America from going to war. But right before this he was about to pass or whatever, Dick Cheney pulled him aside and told him lies like Saddam has a nuclear suitcase, he has ties to Bin Laden, and it's too anything else to tell him or other terrible things about him, it's too classified for knowledge. Each one of those was a lie. He didn't have nuclear weapons. He wasn't tied to Bin Laden. And but obviously it doesn't mean he wasn't a good guy or whatever. And once we go through Iraq and whatnot, it's even in a worse state than it was. Not saying that Hussein made the country all, but we didn't. We try to put democracy. Did we talk about this at the
no, you're absolutely right.
Iran podcast.
Yeah, but I agree with you 100%. Afghanistan was justified. You have to fight terror. You have to go in there and show force. But regime change is an entirely different thing, and it never works because you take down one regime, one's going to come out of the ashes and reform and be worse than the next. It's just, how do you solve that?
Right, absolutely. And so now we're going to kind of go over to the intelligence agency side. So this is where I think stuff gets really, really interesting, but also it starts to depress you. So what did America know at this time? And how much did we know? And from whom did we know? So it is a fact that the CIA, Mossad, and the Lebanese Secret Service informed American counterparts as early as 2000 or even earlier. There were also people such as the Russians, the Germans, and MI6 that gave a lot of this intel to America, but but it wasn't first priority. So, and obviously, as we know too, we said this earlier, the FBI was alerted by these flight instructors, or by the flight instructors about the 9/11 hijackers in Florida.
Yeah.
So it was actually interesting. Once again, in this Looming Tower movie or TV series, it goes to show that this guy Michael Scheuer actually ended up getting fired because he kept saying, he's like, we have to go after Bin Laden. We have to either kill him or we have to flip him. And basically, he was so like gung ho on that he ended up getting fired and taken off Alex Station. So this new guy replaces him. This guy Richard Blee, but once again, it's just the confirmation of they knew that these attacks were going to happen, but they didn't know where, apparently. And it was coming from everywhere. And so, I mentioned Jamar al-Fadl. He was the defector, the first defector of al-Qaeda that gives all this information to us. And we paid him like $1 million like as an asset to learn this information. And then we brought him to America and put him in a safe house. But once he gave us this information, like we couldn't build off of any of it. So this is one interesting thing is that this guy Richard Clark that I mentioned earlier, who's like the guy that like brings all this intelligence to the president essentially. So he is one of the rare guys in government that I think has ever taken responsibility or accountability for what is going on. So what was something else that like you guys learned when you were researching this about the intelligence agencies and the communication between the FBI, CIA?
I thought the coordination, the communication was very poor, very bad between the agencies. And I understand like no one knows fully what's going on, but there needs to be like they need to get on all the same page when there's an event like this, right?
It's fucking unacceptable.
Yeah, dude, absolutely. They need to get on the same page, and they need to make coordinated efforts to, limit this from happening again. Because even if I don't believe a conspiracy, they definitely could have done more to stop something like this.
Yeah.
What if they, just looked a little bit more into the Al-Qaeda, see their doings, their plans. Maybe they wouldn't uncover this, but they could uncover something similar that was about to happen, and then they could, keep researching, keep going down that line. I just don't think they were caring about it enough, but
yeah.
I'm speaking from my perspective 24 years after the fact.
Of course.
So I don't know. I just don't know how it was perceived back then.
Dan?
Well, I don't really have much to say on that, but the scale of misinformation was just insane. It's right now and at the time too. So,
are you talking about misinformation like perceived terrorist attacks, even though they're not real? People just spewing information.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, I just think it's egregious because I think one of the big reasons I think it was ego.
Yeah.
Because the CIA, they didn't trust the FBI. The FBI didn't trust them. As I said earlier, John O'Neill's like, we are going to capture Bin Laden and we're going to bring him to America. And the CIA is like, we are going to kill him or we're going to flip him to learn more about terrorism. And they refused to share information with them. So this is basically Michael Scheuer, the head of Alex Station, and his comments on John O'Neill. Okay, ready? Here we go. This is actually, I found this through Reddit, but this is a legitimate
Reddit's legitimate. Find all sorts of stuff on there.
Sure do.
Oh, this guy looks serious.
This is, like I said, this was the... Dan, this is appalling.
John O'Neill, who was the FBI chief of counterterrorism, you had this to say about him. Mr. O'Neill was interested only in furthering his career and disguising the rank and competence of senior FBI leaders.
Yes, sir. I think I also said that the only good thing that happened to America on 11 September was that the building fell on him, sir.
Oh my God.
Okay. Jeez. This guy.
Holy shit. Is he serious?
Yeah, that is a real video. That's why I kept bringing this up. Because that is a perfect example. That is what was happening between these two agencies, man. Honestly.
Also, Ben, on John O'Neill in this book, there's a couple people in here who had interactions with him on the day of September 11th, and Basically, I think it was a police officer. He ran in and he's like, John, what's going? Because John works security.
So John O'Neill got kicked off the FBI.
He got kicked off the FBI and was working security at the World Trade Center. So this police officer runs in and he's like, John, what's going on? And John looks at him. He's like, you know what's going on. So
what?
Yeah. He knew, dude. He's one of the only guys that like knew how severe this thing was before it happened.
Because he died because not of the initial impact, because the towers literally fell on him.
Fell on him because he was running around telling people.
I don't know how I didn't piece that together.
Yeah.
Also, like, why would he choose to work there? Like, did he know? Like, out of all the places to work.
It's a coincidence, isn't it? It's a strange coincidence.
I think that was unfortunately, yeah.
Well, it's also a coincidence the leaseholder wasn't there the one time.
Yeah, so just a couple more things, and I think we're probably going to get to the horrors of Ground Zero and then the conspiracy theories. So once again, with all these intelligence agencies and whatever, so I think one of the really impressive narratives about 9/11 is that this guy Omar al-Bayoumi, so he was a Saudi agent that was in America that recruited Al-Midhar and Al-Hazmi, who were part of the 9/11 hijackers. And so there was a 50-50 chance that the intelligence agencies have said later on that he knew about the attacks. And so these two hijackers, they stayed with al-Bayoumi. He covered their rent for the first few months because they were here for months beforehand. Like I said, this was all happening in San Diego. If the FBI had been alerted to this, they would have had the ability to apprehend and prosecute them.
Yeah.
But once again, the CIA was trying to flip these two guys to figure out what was going on.
Right.
And so, I think it makes me like really, really mad. And so, between 1997 and 1999, the CIA, through Alex Station, through that guy Michael Shore, had 10 chances to kill or capture bin Laden. But a lot of the times, like under Clinton, they were very hesitant because they couldn't fully confirm that he was actually there. They're like, the percentage of this is like 80-20, but if we're wrong, we're going to kill like a ton of civilians and whatever. And there was an actual strike that happened where they thought it was bin Laden, and it was like a pharmaceutical plant.
Oh, yeah.
I forget what it was called. The FBI also, according to Michael Shore, was the minimally intelligent organization.
Have you read the book Disconnecting the Dots?
No.
It's about the CIA and FBI and how they enabled this to happen.
Send it to me, man. Send it to me.
Disconnecting the Dots.
So guys, another thing too, this is you can learn a lot more about Omar al-Bayoumi. This is a video that has now been declassified, but this is he was in Washington D.C. in 2000. I think this was about around 2000. This is like a year or so beforehand, and he's in Washington D.C. speaking in Arabic, pointing out, "Oh, beloved, esteemed brothers, a greeting to you from Omar al-Bayoumi. We welcome you from Washington, the American capital city. And we come back once more to this building." Just a super creepy video. This is through 60 minutes. "I will provide you with the results soon. I will get over there and I will report to you in detail what is there." So it's fully known that he was an agent for Saudi Arabia. The question is if he was, if he knew about the attacks. And like I said, the FBI. So he ended up, I think he self-deported back to Saudi Arabia. So it's one thing after another. And like I said, with this stuff, man, it gets exhausting. It really does. And so this is I'm going to show this one other clip before we get to the conspiracy theories. But this is from John Kiriakou. John Kiriakou was a CIA guy that actually was a whistleblower on the torture program. And so he's talking about Cofer Black.
2001. I remember it like it was yesterday. I had a visiting delegation.
All right, minute 6:05.
terrible.
This is Kofor Black.
We don't
Him
know
talking.
exactly what, and we don't know where, but we know it's going to be something on a scale that we've never seen before. He said, we're picking up chatter with code words for a massive attack. There's going to be a great soccer match. They're all codes for an attack. He said, we're hearing Al-Qaeda camp commanders talking to their students, and they're crying on the phone and saying, I'll see you in paradise. So he said, I beg you, gentlemen, if you have any sources inside Al-Qaeda, please help us. They all just sat there. Because they weren't focused on Al-Qaeda either. Right. So at the end of the day, I took him back to the hotel. There were a few hours we had before dinner.
Almost done.
And I went back to Kofor's office to thank him. And I said, Kofor, I got to ask you, was that just for their benefit, or were you serious? He said, oh, I'm deadly serious. He said, something terrible is going to happen. I said, that briefing scared the hell out of me. Well, that was July 6th, September 11th. It happens. And I said to there was a guy I sat next to, really great guy. I said, this is what he was talking about in July. This is it. The thing is we never expected it to happen here. We expected maybe another American embassy someplace, a U.S. military base.
So you get the idea. So there's just overwhelming, confirming narratives of, oh, something's going to happen. We don't know where it's coming from. So I just don't know. I don't know what to think of at times. So, anyways, so more to move on to some more happier things. So the horrors of Ground Zero.
Oh yeah, much happier.
So as we talked about earlier, the jumpers that like jumped off all the buildings or whatever. So there was 107 people that jumped in the Gaudet Bros 9/11 documentary. They're filming the firefighters, and you can hear
the sounds, the impact.
Like it's just awful, man. You know, we talked about the people and ripping off their clothing. The crazy thing too is the windows at the World Trade Center were not designed to be opened. So people tried to that were able to get out, like tried to throw
mangled furniture at the windows,
anything really,
just to get some air.
Fires burned at the World Trade Center, the wreckage for 99 days. That's like over 3 months.
Yeah.
Nearby hospitals and this stuff. This is where like you almost like want to cry or something, dude. Like nearby hospitals braced for the overflow of victims, and like barely any came.
Yeah. The detail that got me the most was the suit and the ash. Like it made New York look like a ghost town. Like there was 6 inches to a foot of that suit.
6 inches?
Yeah, I saw it in this book. Yeah, so it covered everything. All the victims were covered in it, you know, because you see that gray ash on them. Mm-hmm. Dude, think about that. 2 massive skyscrapers collapse within 20 minutes of each other. Think of how much debris, how much destruction that is. Like there's vehicles, they're getting ambulances are completely flattened. It's just like the scene itself is like it's a horror movie.
Yeah.
Straight up a horror movie. People were fleeing on boats. Do you see that?
Dude, so apparently I didn't realize 500K got like rescued from ferries and boats
from
and
civilian
yachts.
ferries. Yeah,
I had no clue.
It
about
was like
that.
Dude, it's like Dunkirk. Remember that?
That's what I was just gonna say.
It was like Dunkirk in America.
Dude, and then like rescue dogs were getting depressed because they were just finding
dead people.
Yeah. So, you know, out of the 2,977, 293 bodies were recovered. So that's like only 10%.
293
out of 2,977.
So I mean, they either burned or got obliterated.
Yeah,
it's awful.
41% of the bodies there have never been identified. Yeah. You know, they found 200 parts of one person. Like,
in different areas
through DNA.
Yeah.
They found bone fragments on the top of the Deutsche Bank weeks later, which is another place near it. Phones phones were down for like a whole day and a half or
Yeah.
something, or at least a crazy amount of time because so many people were calling.
Wow.
You know, dude, it's just one survivor was found after 28 hours, which is I think you might have mentioned one of the longest, or that was someone specifically in the rubble. Only they found 18 people alive in the rubble.
Yeah, dude. Crazy.
It's just absolutely another thing too, which is that Bin Laden originally did not plan, I think, that the towers were going to. He didn't think they were going to collapse.
Oh, but when they did, he was much happier.
So apparently the day that this is happening, Bin Laden was telling certain people, because of course they're rejoicing, and like I said, the fact that like they're crying about the death of other people, it's amazing, obviously. And now we know that, like, looking back on there were many innocent Muslims that had gotten killed through these other operations and skirmishes in the Middle East. But it's just, dude, it's obviously demonic and stuff, but it just goes to show you what religion, when it's used as a weapon, how it can just create utter destruction.
Yeah.
So, all right. So we'll hit some of the good old conspiracy theories. All right. So we were talking about controlled demolitions, right? So there are many crazy, utter insane conspiracy theories about 9/11. But before we get to them, I wanted to throw out to you guys: do you think 9/11 is a conspiracy?
I do not.
I don't.
But there's a lot of stuff you can get lost in.
And why do you consider that? Like, what would be your reason to back that up?
I think it's too severe of an event, too many U.S. casualties for it to ever be an inside job. I just can't comprehend someone ordering that on their own people. You know, it's just too hard.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything else too, Dan?
No.
Yeah, I don't. I think it's easy to say. So,
and there's been too much trolling with that Bush did 9/11. Like, there's too much trolling with that.
Well, so here's one of the things. So it is absolutely proven. So the day before 9/11, Bush met with where is it? Where's the September 10th, Bush and his cabinet, people from his cabinet, met with Shafiq bin Laden at a Carlyle Group business conference at the Ritz-Carlton Hotel. And this was only miles from the Pentagon. And bin Laden's brother, he did invest in Bush's company, Arbusto Energy, along with other Bushes from his family. The Carlyle Group was an investment fund and defense contractor. This conference continued despite the 9/11 attacks. Bush stayed as an advisor on this specific at this company or whatever for more than 2 years after the attacks. So I'm not saying that Bush was involved with, the bin Ladens or whatever, but I'm like, that is such a crazy conflict of interest. Were you guys aware of that?
No, that I wasn't aware of that entire meeting. Why?
No.
Why though? Why would he invest in the company? That makes no sense.
Because if you look farther into Bush, before Bush became a governor, he was like running. He was kind of like in his mid-20s. He was an F up. So he went into the Bushes are known for oil.
Yeah.
And once again,
he's from Texas.
Yeah, and out of this, I forgot to mention this about Dick Cheney. Out of this, comes Halliburton and all the money that they've profited off.
Yeah.
Which is crazy. So United and American Airlines stock, it flew the highest the Chicago Stock Exchange has ever seen since then. So, I mean, what do I know about stocks, But a lot of the popular things that you hear now in media is, I would say 3 things. One is the Donald Rumsfeld missing money. So this is once again, same day as when Bush is at this Carlton Hotel with bin Laden's brother. To be fair also, though, to give context, bin Laden had many, like I said, he was one of 54 kids. So it's not like, it just you never can exactly prove it, And so, but once again, with this missing money, $4 trillion was reported missing, because the Pentagon hasn't, I think, over the last, the 7 times they have never passed their audit, and you would know this as an accountant,
right? And for reference, you're talking about Donald Rumsfeld, so he's the
Secretary of
Defense during 9/11. But yeah, so the missing money.
Yeah.
So do you think that was used for, I guess, illegal things, and they don't want to come out and say what they were, even if they weren't related to 9/11, or do you think they were, I don't know. That's like a very interesting I hadn't looked into it much.
Yeah, so that's just a very popular one. They would say that one, and then I'll lob this over to you, Dan. You were going to talk about the insurance payouts with the World Trade Center.
I was.
Okay.
Insurance payouts.
So I'll bring it up
Daddy.
then. So basically, once again, the Donald Rumsfeld missing money, super well known. Then I would also say this would be the second one out of the third, Larry Silverstein. So he basically had an insurance payout for the buildings,
the leaseholder.
And so because both buildings actually ended up collapsing, so he took out this loan a couple months before the attacks, and then they happened, and he actually got double what the buildings were. I think the buildings were worth over $1 billion. Someone can fact check me on that. But so he takes out this huge insurance payout, especially for if a terrorist attack would ever happen, and he won all this money, and then also he was supposed to get breakfast that day at the World Trade Center. He's never missed a stellar record of attendance.
Very routine guy.
Yep. And then the day that the attacks happened, his wife told him to go to a dermatologist appointment, and he missed that day.
Right.
And so, according to Larry Silverstein himself, 9/11 was the only day he missed work, so it was an act of God.
Yeah, that's wild.
All right, and so a couple. So here's another picture. Like I said, a couple more things, then we'll start to wrap up, guys. But so this is one thing about the controlled demolitions. So where do you guys fall with this? This is just another angle, right, of this stuff happening. People say that right before they fall, you hear rumble, like this camera it shakes before. Meaning there's right here.
Yeah.
How the camera shakes, and then 10 seconds later it starts to implode in and on itself. And if you look at certain, we're no architects or whatever, but look how cleanly the building
it's
falls
free
down.
falling. It's a building's not supposed to collapse like that. Granted, we've never seen a building collapse from a fire before. This was the first time. And also, I heard on a podcast, I'm not sure if this is accurate, they said they found remnants of military-grade TNT, which would be used to...
So I heard that's...
Did you hear that too?
That's up for debate currently.
Yeah.
But you have a point. I just think it looks super...
And I'm not saying that's true. I'm just presenting the facts with this.
Appreciate you, Shane. We really appreciate that.
Yeah.
But I think specifically World Trade Center 7, I think that is extremely suspicious. And call me conspiracy theorist, I don't care. I personally think it's very strange. There was a lot of things going on regards to there were buildings I'm starting to lose my train of thought. But essentially there was a lot of classified documents regarding to some of the intelligence stuff going on that was in that building. Now, does that mean specifically? Of course not. But so let's go back to Dick Cheney, Shane, and his order to shoot down that plane. So I think specifically when you look at the it being in Shanksville, Pennsylvania. There was one person that saw the plane, actually. This person's name was...
it was a pilot, F-16 pilot. Are you talking about that guy?
Which one? So there was just a random, bumpkin that saw... Well,
you're talking about a random bumpkin on the ground.
Yeah. There were two, but speaking of which, there's 2 F-16 pilots, Mark Sassville and Heather Penny, that were given the orders to go up there. but they didn't have the time to arm the planes. So
to fill it with fuel. Because it was completely out of fuel, and they were at an Air Force base. And
right.
They got the order.
What needed to be done? Controls of the propulsion system or some part of the airplane that would make it alter its course and not hit its target. A kamikaze mission.
They didn't have guns on their planes, by the way. That's a good thing to note. So they had to ram the planes.
So remember, you would take the cockpit to aim at
That's insane.
the terrorists. And I would take the tail. And you said that.
We did. As we're running out to the airplane.
Wow.
And so when he said that to you, what did you think? Of course.
Wow.
It was obvious.
Fight for your country, huh?
I wouldn't have the courage to do that. I don't have the
That
courage.
shows, dude. That shows the will of the American people. Can never be broken. They sacrificed their life.
So the shoot down order, is that a necessary evil?
It is, dude. Because it was just trying to avoid anything else from from anything else that's could make the day even worse, you know? And like you kind of have to do that. Even if you just alter the plane's course a little bit, it could prevent it from, you know, killing more people than it's already going to kill. Because obviously, the very sad thing is like we can't rescue the people on the plane. You know, like that's donezo.
Absolutely, man. Abso-freaking-lutely. And so, like I said, just a couple more things, guys, and we'll wrap up. So, this is the third. Like I said, there's like 20 different conspiracy theories around here, but the dancing Israelis. So, do you want me to lead with this, or do you guys want to start with it?
Give me your take.
Have you heard about this?
Is that the lies the Arabs spread? What are you talking about?
No. Okay.
Maybe
right.
I don't know about this.
Here we go, Dan. So, the day of, 5 Israeli men were arrested for high-fiving, jumping, exclaiming, and like taking pictures as the World Trade Center burned. This was like on the edge of Jersey, like near, I think Hoboken is like right on the line. And so like a woman not filmed them, but she called the authorities and like said like, hey, these people like pointing and making gestures at the thing. So the FBI heard about this, goes and finds that they had like a moving van. And so these 5 guys, out of these 5 guys, 2 out of the 5 of them had ties to Mossad. So this was found out by the FBI. And so when one was arrested, they said, these 5 guys, by the way, are Sivan and Paul Kurzberg, Yaron Shmuel, Oded Elner, and Omer Mamari. And so they found $4,700 in one of the guy's socks. They found box cutters in the van. Their van said Urban Moving Systems, which ended up being, which later was declassified, a Mossad front in America that was investigating, possible like Islamic Jihad in America. And they're also like ties to Hezbollah, or people that were trying to send funding to Hezbollah inside America. So, So once again, they had foreign passports as well in their car, and so a lot of people in the media right now are flipping out because there's a lot of outspoken criticism against Israel, and I think sometimes people look at what they see and they just like, oh, this immediately means that they knew about it and that there's there's a greater conspiracy and Israel wanted this to happen, and it's just I think it's a very dangerous track to go down.
It definitely is, because someone spread rumors that there was 4,000 Jews that were supposed to be at the Trade Center on that day, which they didn't show up. That was a lie.
I think there were many Jews that were probably killed on that day.
Oh, there were.
Yeah.
100%.
And so once they got detained or whatever, they said, "We are not your problem. The Palestinians are the problem." So this company, Dan, like Uber Moving, the head of the FBI went to their boss of these 5 guys. His name was Dominic Suter, and he ended up self-deporting to Israel right after his first interview with the FBI. He was supposed to have a second one. And so after all this time, basically, I can send you the video if anyone wants to know, or you can just look it up. But these 5 guys were interviewed on like Israeli TV, and they said that they were there to document the events.
Yeah, and weren't they looking into Atta? Like Mossad was looking into Muhammad.
I do believe so.
Yeah, so they were looking into Atta, but it's like why if they were doing that, why weren't they informing the U.S. about it? You know?
So there's just strange things going on, and I think I still I don't know. Do you think America's more corrupt now than it was then, or do you think it's always been? That's the whole
Are you
question.
talking about the agencies, or are you talking about any government in the U.S.?
I think the agencies of the FBI and CIA, you have to have them. If you don't have them, then there's just going to be endless chaos.
They're very necessary.
But I think there are incredibly bad apples. Say if you have a group of 50 people, right? Say it's a church or whatever, and one person's a bad egg. That one bad egg can poison the well.
Well,
really
there just
easily.
needs to be checks and balances, dude. And like you said earlier, FBI and CIA, they won't cooperate because of ego. So if you don't have that cooperation, if you're not working together, you can't accomplish a goal of the whole country, you know?
Yeah.
So that prevented them during 9/11, and that might still prevent them today. I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's other stuff like there's Epstein had a painting of George Bush in two towers with paper airplanes. Are you aware of that?
No.
Yeah, I have it here, but I have to charge my computer because I'm running out of juice. So yeah, there's just so many different things that just don't add up. Even once again going back to Cheney and Rumsfeld, like they both come in with a certain their net worth is like I think here I have it written down. Cheney came in as he had 19 million when he came into office, and then he left with 90 million in his pocket. And Donald Rumsfeld was worth 50 million when he got into office, and then he was worth 2 million when he left. So there's just so many different things. And once again, guys, it is down the rabbit hole, but even Trump gave several different testimonies where he was like, oh, I was in this part of New York at the time. And then he's like, no, I was actually helping people and whatever. So he's given like several different conflicting testimonies. So there's also possible through TMZ as well. They brought up the fact that there's a whole interesting thing about there possibly being a 5th plane that had terrorist guys on it and never flew off. They had box cutters, like all this stuff. And once again, there was actually a random Polish immigrant, Henry Sywiak, that actually got killed in a random. He was the only one. He was the only other guy that got killed there that wasn't related to the 9/11 attacks. So yeah, like I said, a whole lot of stuff. And once again, we talk about celebs that should have died that day, right? Seth MacFarlane was hungover and missed his flight.
Really?
And think about it, like what a time to be. He was the one that was hungover, right, Dan? I think you said that earlier.
I don't know if he was hungover. I just know he missed his flight.
He hung over the airport and missed his flight. Yeah. Mark Wahlberg ended up switching planes at the last second to go to a film festival in Toronto, and then he said if I was on the plane, we would have taken
over
the plane back. I'm like, all right, whatever, bro.
He's an actor.
Yeah, dude. Like Steve.
He's Jack though.
Yeah,
he is.
Steve Buscemi was there. Gwyneth Paltrow, like I said, unfortunately, Pete Davidson's dad passed. Michael Jackson was supposed to be having food in the tower actually the next day, but he had a big concert and he stayed up late talking to his mom after the concert, so he slept late.
Oh.
Yeah, isn't that crazy?
His mom?
And then the most randomest one ever is that Kyrie Irving's dad was in the World Trade Center as it was happening. He ran out of the building and ran on foot 9 miles to Kyrie's school.
Really?
Yeah.
Whoa.
All right.
Jim Pierce was also he was supposed to be on the 102nd floor for a meeting. Do you know Jim Pierce?
I actually don't.
So he is George W. Bush's nephew. And him and his team were supposed to have an interview on the 102nd floor, which they moved like last minute to the 4th floor. So they all made it out alive.
Wow. And it's just there's so many other it's just crazy, man. Like the grounds of the actual Pentagon, like they were actually originally, when the Pentagon was being built, it was started building on September 11th, 1941. John Ashcroft, the Attorney General, was ordered not to travel by plane 6 weeks beforehand because of possible threats. And this guy, Ahmed Shah Massoud, which was Afghan's defense minister, warned America about the attacks just months before, and he was killed by a bomb that Al-Qaeda put in a camera. Like, so he went to sit down with someone from like a representative of like for an interview, and it was really an Al-Qaeda guy, and killed him. Cool. And then the Secret Service was tracking Flight 11 for 30 minutes before impact. They had missiles ready to fire, and they didn't. So why did this happen? So, and right, yeah, just for the aftermath, guys. So just 15 days after the attack, so the CIA launched Operation Jawbreaker. So that's like where we sent like special forces into Afghanistan.
Yeah.
And that was to throw once again, to overthrow the Taliban. So Homeland Security is created in 2002, directly after this, by Bush. Once again, Shane, you said you have gone to the 9/11 memorial?
Yeah. No, Dan has.
Or Dan has. I would love to go at some point. I thought about visiting it even before.
It's chilling.
I did this, but yeah, it's very sobering, man.
Yeah.
Like, there was massive floodage and damage underneath the towers. So just like, it was $10 billion in damages, $750 million just to clean up the debris.
Oh, I'm sure. Yep.
And so with this, the dust itself was made up of asbestos, concrete, fiberglass.
Yeah. That's why people couldn't breathe during it.
Yeah, because even fiberglass, if you get it in your throat, you can die.
Yeah,
right?
you can't breathe.
Oh, lead too,
Yep.
Cantor Fitzgerald, I told Shane this a while ago, an investment bank in the North Tower lost 680 people. Or 650 out of 960.
That was all above the impact zone. Cantor Fitzgerald.
I looked this up too, as of like right now.
But the CEO made it out because he wasn't there.
Yeah,
isn't that interesting?
There's got to be, I don't know. So 40,000 people have been diagnosed with
cancer,
9/11 cancer.
Yeah,
and honestly, there's 7. It's not just cancer, but there's 70 different kinds. The most popular are thyroid, skin, and prostate cancer.
Yeah, get your prostate checked.
Yeah, honestly,
that's coming up for Dan.
Holy shit. Just kidding. So once again, the Patriot Act passed with no amendments on October 5th, 2011. Like I said, check out that podcast I did with my friend Scott, because we talked about that. And then, Khalid Sheikh Mohammed is still 25 years later in Guantanamo Bay. It's probably that he'll never see trial because, like, his lawyer, I don't even know why this has lawyers. So, excuse my French. One awesome thing about Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, though, once we captured him, he was waterboarded 183 times in Poland.
Good. Doing more.
And then, once again, out of this, like I said, another great part of history, forbidden part of history, is that guy, John Kiriakou, like, blew the whistle on torture programs. So after this, we did like these things called EITs, enhanced interrogation. So this is where they would do stuff where they strip you naked, they put you in like extremely cold environments, they waterboard you. They would do stress positions, so they put your body in awkward angles. Once again, they show some of this in Zero Dark 30. Bin Laden wasn't found for 10 years.
Yeah, that was wild.
Yeah,
that would have been 2011. Especially as the years progressed and our technology advanced.
Yeah.
It still took us 10 years.
Right.
It's embarrassing.
It is embarrassing. Especially because the first image that we confirmed of him was like through that, what do you call it? Not the night vision, but like the
nods or whatever they're called?
Yeah, nods. So remember he was the green figure? We pointed him out because the whole way we got him was because that CIA operative tracked down the courier. Then Bin Laden and his family were there, and then we got him. We went in and murked him.
Yeah, and
did you see like there's no official post-mortem photos of Bin Laden?
That pisses me off. People act like that's a conspiracy theory. It's like, oh, Bin Laden's still alive. I'm like, dude, what are you talking about? Like, even regardless if there's still terrible things going on in the world, but like even currently right now, Hezbollah, I mean, who knows right now about ISIS, but Trump took care of ISIS for a little while. I think it's absolutely disrespectful, be like, oh, he's still alive, we're keeping him around. I'm like, no, dude, it's because
He's at
of
the bottom of the
martyrdom.
ocean. Yeah, because they would have found his body and rejoiced with it. So we
Yeah.
threw him in the bottom of the ocean. Did we do anything with him before we threw it at the bottom of the ocean?
Not that I know of.
Yeah.
No, and that's the thing. Like once you're going, like, maybe I'll have to do a whole another podcast just on the Afghanistan and Iraq wars. But it's like, how do you fight an enemy that wants to die?
Right.
You know,
Right.
it's just absolutely insane. And once again, even though with Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, once again, when he was getting waterboarded, he would do this. He would count the seconds that he would get waterboarded. So, like, he was way, like, his mentality and his, like, viciousness and his, like, I don't know how else to say that he was a hard, like, I can't believe that now the people are trying to bring lawsuits to, like, you know, that he was, you know, abused in prison, which he was. But, and out of this stuff, man, comes terrible things like the Abu Ghraib, like, prison scandals in Iraq. That's when, like, American soldiers are, like, you know, abusing Iraqi citizens, and just, it becomes, you know, it really changed the world, man. And so these last, like, two things, right? So this documentary, Fahrenheit 9/11, it follows this one woman, Lila Lipscomb is her name. And she's like walking. She basically had a child that died in Afghanistan. So she's walking in D.C., right? So she walks up to an immigrant woman. This immigrant woman's on the sidewalk that has like an anti-war sign, basically, and she's like, "They killed my family. They killed yours too." Like I said, an immigrant, probably from one of these Middle Eastern countries. And she's like, "What is this all for? Like oil? George Bush is the terrorist. All this stuff." And then so these two women are looking at each other. A third random woman comes up and says, "No, it isn't. This is all staged and whatever." And this woman, Lila Lipscomb, looks at this random person that comes up and says, "April 2nd isn't staged. That's the day my son died." And then this random woman goes and replies like, "Other people died in wars too." And so as like the camera like is panning away, this woman Lila Lipscomb is walking away from this because she's still dealing with the death of her son. And then she goes, "Now I have finally a means to put my anger." And then it like pans right towards the American Capitol.
Whoa.
And just like basically, you know, I found out that 1 out of 535 members of Congress had one person that went and was enlisted. One person out of 135 members of Congress. So who's to blame for 9/11? We may never know. And will we ever get the full truth? Probably not. There's like things about like Trump's going to release this file and that file. But, you know, we hope this could never happen again. But I think we'll see another terrorist attack in our lifetime. So on that lovely note, guys, thank you for making it to the end. I know it's been a marathon, and I appreciate it.
Oh, it was fun.
Yeah. Thanks for having us, buddy.
Cool. Until next time, guys. Peace. Alrighty. 3, 2, 1. What's up, guys? Welcome to Down the Rabbit Hole, Part 2, the 9/11 attacks. Just before you get into this episode, I just wanted to say that I am on TikTok, Spotify, Instagram, and YouTube. It's all under the same name, The Last House on the Left, so just be aware of that. Also, before we get into this podcast, I just wanted to say viewer discretion is advised. We talk about some serious stuff regarding Ground Zero and what happened there. So just have that at the front of your mind, that this is just to give context about what happened to that day and not to glorify or shine any bad light upon the victims and their families. Also, a couple other quick things is that in this description, you will see the timestamp. So if you want to jump around about the different topics that we cover, that's totally fine. That's what they're there for. What we're going to be talking about in this episode is what happened on the actual day, like the timeline, like minute by minute, essentially. We're also going to talk about the failure of the intelligence agencies, and we're also going to talk about like possible 9/11 conspiracies. So that also being said, there was so much that we covered in this episode, but also I am doing a part 3 because there's just so much more that even just after filming this that we didn't even fully address. So my friend Joe Fournier, who you guys know, an old guest of the show, is going to be back for part 3, which I'm going to be releasing later in September or maybe early October. And just one other quick last thing, as many of you guys know, the passing of Charlie Kirk, the political activist for not just the right but the whole Republican Party. He passed away and was killed through being shot today. So I just wanted to acknowledge him. I didn't agree with him on a lot of different issues, but I think political violence is never an option. So once again, this is a heavy podcast, but overall the research for everything going on, I think, is very crucial for even times like today, and how to avoid terrible occurrences like stuff going on with Charlie Kirk and other bad things that's going on in the world. So once again, guys, thank you again. Enjoy the episode. See you next time.